And that was when I knew this is not, like, it almost like that was the moment that it hit me. And I spent a lot of years questioning God, like, why did this happen? Why did I have to go through this? You know, this was a dangerous situation. Like, hey, what's up, guys? It's Erica here. Welcome back to my channel, Erica's Diary. If you are new here, welcome. If you are not new, welcome back, of course. If you haven't not subscribed, please do so. Thank you very much. You guys, today's diary entry is going to be a tough one for me. I'm going to be sharing something that was very traumatic for me in terms of a relationship. It was my longest relationship that I've ever had, and it was my last relationship that I've ever had, and it ended around 3 years ago, I would say. So where do I start? I'm just gonna paint the picture from when we began. So let's take it back to 2016, which feels like forever ago, about 5 years ago. I had prayed to God to, I remember this was in February. Actually, let me take it back. Let's not do that. Let's take it back to when I first met him. So let's take it back to 2012. I remember praying to God, like, God, if you could just send me a Valentine, like, oh, I would never ask for anything ever again. Like, I just wanted a Valentine. I was single, hadn't, dated in a while. Like, I just really wanted someone. And I was like, if you hear me, just let him, come to me, around Valentine's Day. So 2012 February 12th, 2012 comes around, and me and my friend go out to this club. And that's where I met this dude on the dance floor. I was the only one out of my little girl group that wasn't dancing, and he was just kind of standing against the wall, staring at me. I don't really remember the exchange, but come to find out, obviously we started dating after that. He, at the time, was like my most real relationship. He was my best friend, the person that, we hung out all the time, obviously had him around my family. My family loved him. He had me around his family. He had all sisters, so that was kind of intimidating at first. But I love all of them. I still keep up with them these days. So I just, at the time, I really thought that was going to be my husband. That was going to be the person that I have kids with. I was so in love. And we were together for a total of 6 years. Now, I say 6 years because honestly, when I first met him, I was 24. So honestly, I was not looking for marriage. I wasn't ready for marriage. I, liked the idea of marriage, but like, I wasn't ready to be nobody's wife. I was not there yet, but I was cool with having my little boyfriend and, being in a cute relationship. But, we used to, travel together, spend holidays together. Our birthdays were 1 week apart, so we would always celebrate our birthdays together around Labor Day, and that was kind of our tradition for those years. Now, cut to year 4. So he was turning 30, right? So I had planned this beautiful surprise trip for his 30th birthday to Puerto Rico. I had planned for my other 2 friends that were from DC to go ahead and meet us in Puerto Rico, and we were going to surprise him. Like, I had planned it. I had set up the whole thing like it was going to be bomb. And he had no idea where we were going. He knew that we were going on a trip, but I didn't tell him any of the details. So at that time, the job that I worked for, they had, one of the perks of working with them is that they had a shuttle that you could take to the airport. But for some reason, I woke up that morning and I was just not able to get myself together. And I was flustered and I was rushing. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to miss the flight because I still got to, he still got to meet me to get the shuttle. Like, it was just going to be a lot. So I remember my mom was like, girl, don't worry about it. I'll just take y'all. So she had to pick me up and then pick him up. He lived very, very close to the airport. I mean, like around the corner. So, as we're driving to his house, I just felt so anxious and nervous. And I thought it was just because I had been rushing and we were late, and I just hate being late. So that's what I thought it was from. So I get to his apartment, and of course he's not ready. And that was one thing about him. He was never ready on time. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves. I am not one of the females that take 4 hours to get ready. Like, you tell me we got to be ready at 9:30, I'm gonna be ready at 9:30, like, period. But for him, no. So finally he comes out and gets into the back seat of my mom's truck. I was in the passenger seat, and as we're driving off, we are about to, make a turn to the stop sign and then just head right to the airport, where he goes, dang, I left my ID. I'm like, dude, like, we don't have time for this. So my mom was like, no, it's okay. I'll just make a U-turn right here and we'll just go back. It'll be fine. You're not going to be late. I'm freaking out. I'm like, trying to be, trying to make sure that this whole surprise just runs smoothly. Already freaking out. That is the Virgo in me. Okay. So as she makes a U-turn, I noticed this red pickup truck that is going full speed ahead, like we were gonna have a head-on collision. So I was like, Mom, I was like, Mom. And I remember reaching over to her because she was driving and honking, like blaring the horn, like, this man is going to hit us. And as I'm blaring on the horn, he slams on his brakes. He gets out of the vehicle, has his hand, which looks like a gun holster, which it was, because he ends up pulling out a weapon and, holding it up to my mom's side of the window and saying, get out the car. And he flashes his badge. It's the undercover police officer. And I'm like, what? And then I look to, my right, and there's another police officer, but he's telling me to get out of the car. Then I look behind us, and there is like 3 other undercover cop cars. And I'm like, so they all just swarmed in on us. And I'm like, what is going on? And they separate us 3. And they start patting, my boyfriend at the time, they start patting him down. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it just seemed like a movie. There had police that had huge firearms, police with bulletproof vests on. And I was like, you guys have clearly got the wrong people, because I don't know what and who and where and what is going on. So at this point, because they separated us, they weren't speaking to anybody but my boyfriend. And I'm like, what is going on? So apparently, again, they never told me this in the moment, but they were looking for him because he was suspected of being involved with people that were doing bad things. And I will not get into, the legal part of it. I will not get into the details of that. I still have respect for him. I still have respect for his family. I'm not going to go into that. But they were looking for him. And apparently they had been following him for a while. And I'm like, what? To me, I'm like, this is not, y'all obviously have the wrong person. Now, this was the day before Labor Day. So I remember them asking him while we're still separated. They asked him, they're like, we just want to ask him a couple of questions. It's fine. We just want to ask him a couple of questions. And they asked him, where were you headed? And he was like, the airport, but I don't know where we were going. Like, he kept saying that. And so they called me over. He was like, this man is saying he don't know where y'all were going. And I was like, that's true. I was like, I had been planning a trip for the past 6 months. Like, and so I ended up telling him we were on our way to Puerto Rico. And he was like, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but he's not going to be able to go with you and all this. And I'm like, and they still would not tell me any details. And so at the time, I ended up calling his sister, who was able to call a attorney. But by the time all of that happened, they had already took him to book him. And you guys, I was in shock. I felt like I was in a movie. How I'm even describing it to you right now just sounds out of this world. Didn't even sound like it was somebody, like it happened to me. Because I would not, first of all, I don't like bad guys. You know, I don't like bad boys. Like, no, I'm not the one that like, ooh, he cute. He may, you know, deal a little something, but he cute. Like, no, that's not me. I don't know. If you about that life, I don't want any parts of it or anything to do with it. So I had no idea what was going on. And so because they booked him basically on a holiday weekend, we had to wait like 2 or 3 days until we were able to go to what they call an arraignment. And that is where you have to face a judge and they will be able to tell you if they will let you out on bond. Well, they did not let him out on bond because they tried to flag him as a flight risk, saying that he was trying to flee because we were trying to go to Puerto Rico. And I'm like, no, it was literally a trip that I planned 6 months prior to. And these officials were obviously, you know, following him for several months. And they even obviously were following me because they knew at the time where I worked, they knew how much money I made, like all of that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, well, if you were following me, then you knew I booked that flight 6 months in advance. I don't know who flees, but plans it 6 months in advance, like purchases the ticket 6 months in advance and then waits to flee 6 months later. Like that don't even add up. So because they would not release him, he had to be detained, and he ended up being detained for about 1.5 years before he was able to actually, you know, face his court date. You guys, it was the most devastating thing I have ever experienced in my life. So like I said, that was at the 4-year mark of us being together. So when I saw him at the arraignment, he was dressed in, you know, an all white jumpsuit, but they chained his wrists and they chained his ankles. And for me to see him like that was so out of this world. Like, I felt it was like an outer body experience. I showed up to that arraignment. I had my mom with me and my dad with me. Okay. And like I said, I had, you know, had my boyfriend around my family, you know, having Sunday dinners with us. And like, you know, he was part of the family. Like, everybody knew him to be this person, this certain person. But from him being in them chains and all of that, it was a totally different person. And I was just so confused. And one thing I can say about my parents, which I'm not gonna cry, I'm so blessed for my parents, because honestly, you guys, my mother was the guardian angel that day. The day that we got pulled over, I swear to you, she was the guardian angel. Because remember, I told you, the initial plan was for me to take my work shuttle with him to the airport. But for some reason, I was running late. I was flustered. We were stuck in traffic. It just wouldn't happen. So I felt like God was still in the midst of that. And if my mother would have not been there, and it was either just me in my car with him, we know how some police can be so brutal and just shoot first and ask questions later. That could have very well been my story. And I just thank God that my mother was there, even though I hate that she had to experience an undercover cop pulling a gun out on her. Like, if you were following him, why would you pull a gun out on a middle-aged black woman that you're not even looking for? When we were at the arraignment, the lawyer asked me to get up on the stand and like testify for his, my boyfriend at the time's good character. So they were asking me questions, and I was very matter of fact, straight to the point. Like, very honest, right hand to the man. Like, I was not covering anything. I literally did not know anything. And there were some things that were said or that I was accused of that was absolutely false. Like accused of knowing what he is being accused for, or, accused of like hiding him, because at the time I had helped him get an apartment, but it was for other reasons. It wasn't because of what they were trying to make it seem like. And my dad ended up getting on the testimony stand, and I will always remember that, because it was like he had my back and he had his back. It's like, so told you I don't like to cry in front of people. Anyway, so imagine him being held or detained for a year and a half and me not being able to still really know anything. I could just I could talk to him, but it would be obviously on a recorded call. It would only be for like 15 minutes or less. He couldn't say anything, because anything that he would say, obviously they're recording the call, so it could be, used against him in some sort of way. I would drive 54 miles one way every visit, which would normally be on a Saturday morning at like 7 a.m. to see him for 20 minutes behind a glass to talk to him through a recorded phone. So what you see on movies and stuff like that, that's real. Like, that's not, behind that glass with everybody looking and watching is real. And it was the most, like I said, an outer body experience. I never would have thought I would be experiencing that, thinking that I'm going on a trip to celebrate the love of my life's 30th birthday, and boom, now I'm going to visit him in prison. What? So, you guys, I don't even know how I even functioned through that. So a year and a half, around that time, I have mentioned to you guys before that I started a brand with one of my closest friends. So it was around that time that we had launched it. And at that time we were doing, we were recording vlogs. We didn't have a podcast at that time. So we were just recording YouTube videos, and she had no idea. I didn't tell any of my friends till way, like, years after. But imagine me getting up to drive 54 miles one way down a country road to go see him, my best friend, the love of my life, for 20 minutes, turn back around, drive 54 miles back home, get on put makeup on, put an outfit on, record for my brand that is about empowering women, being positive, telling them don't give up, telling them to be great, telling them they can do it, telling them they can be multifaceted, they can do anything that they want, believe in your dreams, you can get it, whatever it is that you want, but torn to pieces inside. I did that for a year and a half. And it was like, how was I doing that? And I think it was because part of it, I was still so much in denial of what was really going on. It's like I was still in shock. And I remember, you know, the only people that knew was obviously my family and his family at this time. And I remember driving. My mom would always drive with me up to the prison. I never was on them roads by myself. They were real janky. And I was like, I need somebody to come with me. So I remember coming back, and I just exploded in tears to where I had to pull over on the side of the dirt road, and I just cried in my mom's arms. I wailed. It was like one of them cries where you can't even breathe cry. And that was when I knew this is not, like, it almost like that was the moment that it hit me. And I spent a lot of years questioning God, like, why did this happen? Why did I have to go through this? You know, this was a dangerous situation. Like, I was like, God, I would have never been around this person if I knew that this situation would have transpired from it. Long story short, after the year and a half, let me back up. Not only was I driving to visit him, I would still be like sending him scriptures, sending him collages of pictures of us, like, you know, trying to keep his spirits up this whole year and a half while I'm over here like torn to pieces, crying, but like still trying to like let him know that I'm there for him. I'm not, you know, believing what they're saying about him. Like, I know the person that he is, the kind of heart that he has. Like, he's never this dangerous person they trying to paint him out to be. Like, so I really honestly think it was the grace of God that I was able to do that. And I feel like once I no longer had the grace to do it anymore was when I felt like God was like, okay, you've done a great job. This is why I gave you this assignment, because you would be strong enough to handle it. And now I need for him to depend on me. Like, he's depending on you more than he's depending on me. So I'm gonna need him to depend on me. And that's when I felt like I no longer had the grace to see him, write him, send him pictures, send him money, support this, support that. I had given up damn near all my savings to help with his lawyer fees. That ended up being a whole situation to where I feel like they just took our money. They played on our emotions and just took our money, knowing that he was not getting out. So to this day, he's still there. I have not talked to him in I would say a year or so. It just kind of faded out that way. I'm skipping a lot of steps, you guys, but this was the meat of it that I'm sharing with you today. It was just something that was very detrimental. Like I said, I never shared it with any of my friends till years later. So until I felt like I was in a good space to talk about it without like wailing, crying, I could share it. And when I shared it with my friends, they were totally taken aback because they had met him too. They had been on trips with us. They were like, okay, this doesn't even make sense. And they were like, why didn't you tell me? Like, I would have been there to support you. But it's like, when you go through something and you don't know anybody else on this planet or earth or in your circle that has been through it, how do you explain that? How do you talk about something that nobody else can relate to you about it? What could they say? What could they do? And so it was just a hard thing for me. And I just felt like that was a huge loss. And I have still, you know, that happened in 2016. It's 5 years later. I'm still believing God for restoration in terms of things that I lost, because I did lose a important relationship to me. It was important. I loved that relationship. I loved him, obviously, because I wouldn't have done all the things that I've done to try to, you know, be there for him. But I felt like, God, why did I have to lose him or lose it so drastically on top of that? And I'm like, God, I'm believing for you to restore everything that I lost. Because I don't know which is worse, is to mourn the death of somebody or to mourn the death of a relationship with somebody. Because it was like I was mourning somebody that was still alive. You know? Somebody that I can't talk to like I want to talk to. You go from talking to this person every single day, all day, seeing them every day, every other day, to seeing him behind a glass wall for 10 minutes. it was so traumatic. And now that I'm out of it, when I say out of it, I mean like emotionally. Like, I'm not emotionally tied to it, but it's something that will always be traumatic in my past. I will never forget it. But like I said, I haven't been in a relationship. I mean, I've dated here and there, talked to people from here and there, but like I have not been in a relationship. And now I'm at the space where I want to be in a relationship, but like I said, I'm waiting for God to like restore. And what I mean, I don't mean restore that relationship that I lost, but restore what I lost in terms of like, okay, that was taken from me. So now my next relationship is going to be God showing me restoration. Because I remember asking God, like, you know, well, if I knew that these people were just going to take our money and be crooked about certain things, then, you know, I would have never did this. And, you know, I felt like God was like, well, how can I show you restoration if you never lost it? So I don't know. I feel like I missed a lot of parts in this story, but like I said, you got the meat of it. And it's just really about, like I was saying, the things that I went through it to learn things, but I also went through it. I felt like I was put in my ex's life for that particular time, for that reason, because what I was doing for him, how I was there for him, probably blessed him more than I thought that it did. And once, like I said, I didn't have the grace to do it anymore, I felt like God was like, okay, I'm moving you so that he can depend on me. I gotta work on him. And to this day, I still hope that things work out in his favor. I hope that he's doing well. I had to move on from it. It was hard for both of us to let go of each other. There was times where he was mad and upset that like I was no longer writing him or no longer, doing everything that I was doing for him. But I had to heal myself. I had to work on myself. I was still getting up, going to work, still going to record vlogs, talking about, be encouraged and do all this. And I was in a mess. So I had to take care of myself. And I am in a much better space emotionally, obviously. But like, that was so traumatic that I don't need another lesson like that. I got it. God, I got it. I got the message. That was a lot, you guys. I know it was. So that's why I don't take relationships lightly. That's why I desire to be married one day. I mean, I'm not saying I want to be married tomorrow, but I do desire to be on the start to building that friendship and relationship with someone that is going to be my husband. I don't have time to be messing with people that like, oh, have no plan, like, oh, I don't want a relationship right now, I just want to be cool. Like, no, I don't got time for that. Because one thing about it is I was with this guy for 6 years, and it was like, yes, we were young, we weren't ready for that, but I'm not giving another 6 years to anybody without the intent. But honestly, it was a blessing that I did not have children with him or did not get married to him, because that would have been a whole situation with, the kid's dad being in prison. And I've seen it when I go visit. I've saw families, I've saw women pregnant, I've saw wives going up there, and it's just not a good situation. It's just nothing that you should be it's just nothing that you would want to see for anybody. I don't care if it's your worst enemy, you don't want to see it. It's like a completely different world, like I said, an outer body experience. But obviously God had me go through that for various reasons. I made it out okay. And I just hope that I do get restored for that. I have been restored in terms of, other things, blessings. I've been blessed. I've still was able to move forward, live my life. Like I said, I still traveled with my friends. I still lived my life, still tried to move forward, still tried to move on, even though it was probably the worst heartbreak I've ever had. It was the worst because of all of the traumatics that happened. So, I know that was a lot, you guys, but I do appreciate you guys for listening. Like I said, this is my first time really talking about that out loud. Unless it was to one of my closest friends. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, that you got a message out of it, that something within this resonated with you, that I could be of some sort of love, light, inspiration to you. Please feel free to comment. I enjoy reading comments. I will respond back. Like I said, be sure to subscribe. And as always, I appreciate you for watching. I will see you next time. Bye, you guys.